Once again, the Penguins' past, present, and future were all well represented here at PPG Paints Arena. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms. The Penguins reverse recent trends. They had lost 5 of 6 against the New York Islanders. Thursday in the home opener, they beat New York 4-3. And there's just way too many things to stuff into an 8 or 10 minute post game. Of course, you've got Evgeny Malkin really playing some great hockey. I assume he leads the NHL after a couple of days with 5 points in the first couple of games, 1 goal, 4 assists. He had a few more helpers on Thursday. Justin Brazeau is finishing those chances that Evgeny Malkin is setting up. Didn't necessarily see that coming, did we? So that's sort of the past, and Sidney Crosby also gets a goal in the win, set up by Evgeny Malkin. You also saw, you're seeing the emergence of the Penguins' future. Ben Kindle, Harrison Brunick, a third rookie in the lineup on Thursday. That was Philip Hollander. Now, Hollander didn't have a big, spectacular game. He didn't do anything that made you say, wow. But what he really did was play a solid, simple, straight-ahead game. And quite frankly, given the way the Penguins played, the third line especially, given the way they played on Tuesday against the New York Rangers, Hollander's just sort of, actually he played bigger than I expected. Really good on the wall, able to shield the puck, use his body in the puck battles. Remarkable difference in that line when Hollander was doing those things. It brought Ben Kindle back to the fore in the offensive zone. He didn't have to do both the heavy lifting and the creative. He was able to do one or the other on any given shift. It also seemed to bring Tommy Novak to life, somebody else to go get the pucks for him and sort of spring him to life. By the third period, Coach Dan Muse had moved Hollander to the first line with Sidney Crosby. Now, to clear up any confusion you and I have about Philip Hollander, I have nothing against the player. I certainly wasn't overly impressed with his training camp performance. Dan Muse, I thought, had Thursday morning when he said he kept getting better through camp. Muse was under the impression or believes that Hollander was readjusting to North America after spending the last couple of years in the Swedish league. Fair enough. He gave the rookie a shot. The Penguins were rewarded. Hollander was rewarded with his first career point, setting up Harrison Brunick's first career goal. And the very simple play that Hollander made. Look, he couldn't outskate the defender. He got caught, from behind, turned to the wall, but he didn't yield the puck. He didn't yield the play, used his body to shield the puck. A deft little touch pass to Brunick. That springs the Penguins defenseman, middle of the slot, and actually he made a really good shot. Ilya Sorokin came to the top of the crease. He didn't sag back. He wasn't surprised by Brunick's presence or emergence there in the slot. Brunick beat him. Just picked the glove side, mid-height, almost off the post. Maybe it did catch a little iron, and in. Didn't have to call for the puck either. Hollander, saw him the whole way. In fact, I asked Brunick that in the locker room. Did you call for it? Were you yelling for it? And he's like, I didn't have to. I'm just following up the play. Now, let's put a pin in that because it brings up an entire different conversation and a way we can go here on the game from that little play to a big picture item is that Muse is encouraging the defenseman to activate. Not only does he want them to jump into the play in the offensive zone when there's a chance. That was sort of Mike Sullivan, get there first And then as the opportunity presents itself, maybe pinch, maybe rotate, maybe cycle. Having talked with multiple Penguins defensemen over the last couple or a few days about this very topic, and I asked Brunick again tonight, what are the coaches saying to you about activating and so forth? One defenseman said, yeah, it's a lot more fun, meaning, this year versus prior years. Obviously, Brunick didn't tell me that. It would have been one of the other, defensemen who's been around for at least a couple or a few. But fun was the word because they're being encouraged to go. You'll also notice the defensemen are part of the forecheck. It's an interesting scheme where if the defenseman joins the forecheck to add extra pressure, you notice they're on the fun side of the red line. The forwards have to be aware. They got burned a few times on Thursday. The Islanders had some odd man breaks. Caleb Jones jumped forward a couple of times when you would have ordinarily said, no, don't, made a bad read and jumped forward. Maybe I can say more succinctly. Those are problems. Jones has been good and really bad simultaneously. He's made some really good plays. You can see his skating. In the offensive zone, he can really sort of fly around the zone, enter, come to that mid wall, get the puck and take it low very quickly. He also has made numerous bad reads in the first couple of games going forward when he should have held his ground or dropped back. That's going to be a little bit of an issue because over the long haul, you're not going to expect Erik Karlsson to play great defense. Chris Letang at 38 years old is probably going to, he's not Chris Letang of 32 years old when Letang was a Norris favorite. Or maybe it was 31 when he was Norris favorite. You get what I'm saying. But still, Muse has taken off the shackles. He's sending the defenseman. And that's creating an energy, an excitement, both in the locker room and on the ice. It's creating problems, matchup problems for opponents. On Thursday, the Penguins defenseman had 12 of the team's 28 shots, according to the stat sheet. Now, the one criticism always levied against former coach, who shall not be named, who will be here on Saturday, was that the former coach didn't make adjustments with the lead, kind of sat on his hands, should have played a defensive shell more often. I asked Muse specifically that question on Thursday. What are you saying to your defensemen, both, at the beginning of the game in terms of activating, but also with a third period lead? And Muse admitted the message changes slightly in the third. A little more conservative, but only a little. They don't want to change the scheme. They don't want to change the pressure because when you take your foot off the gas pedal, you get on your heels. And that's the one thing the Penguins haven't done in the first couple of games. They held the lead on Tuesday against the Rangers, out shooting them 15-5 in the third period. They put the hammer down. Thursday, they were outshot, but they well outchanced New York, at even strength anyway, in the third period. 7-1, the high danger chances in the third period. The Penguins got after it. They put New York on their heels for good chunks of the third period. Now, to tie it all together, we've talked about the defense, we've talked about the rookies, we've talked about Evgeny Malkin. Now to put the big bow on it, you're seeing the rookie energy sort of lift the team in the third period. Even though Muse is kind of coaching his butt off, very subtly. Take a look at Harry Brunick's ice time. 12 minutes is all he played on Thursday. That's all that Brunick played. In fact, if I take a look at Ben Kindle, he played 13 minutes. That's kind of a low ice time for a third-line center. Philip Hollander, Hollander is the way I'm trying to pronounce it, but just years of saying Hollander. Philip Hollander played 12:36 despite being moved up to the first line in the third period. Either way, all of it sort of, it's an interesting casserole right now that the Penguins are baking. Energetic, enthusiastic, rookies and veterans, everybody sort of going the same way, forward. And oh, by the way, Tristan Jarry had a spectacular third period, including stopping a breakaway with about 12 seconds to go. So, yeah, there were a couple shaky goals, probably ones that you want your goalie to have back, but the number of goals that Jarry stopped that probably should have been or looked like sure things was also pretty high, and Jarry made the key saves. That was something that Jarry certainly struggled with last year, especially, was making the key saves. He did that on Thursday. Penguins go to 2-0. They got the Rangers once again. That should be fun. Because the Rangers didn't like being shut out at home in the first game of the season in front of a national TV audience. You certainly saw Mike Sullivan's expression if you watched the game. It was not happy. Sullivan will not be talking after the Rangers practice on the ice sheet behind me on Friday. He's waiting until Saturday morning to talk. So I guess we kind of have the day off on that. Good, because I did not want to write that story on Friday. I did not want to wait around for an extra hour and a half after practice for Sullivan to have meetings, have lunch, call old friends, and whatever else he does between the end of practice and when he does his media availabilities. I didn't feel like waiting around for that on and off day. So we don't have to. Sullivan will be talking on Saturday. And that will be the Penguins' a really big test for them if they can handle a team that I would assume is going to attack from the opening puck drop, almost as a bit of revenge, a bit of pride. Justin Brazeau scores again. He's showing silky mitts for a big guy. It's also showing he's got some wheels. Anthony Mantha showing his hands and his hockey IQ. He's got to finish a few chances, but that line, Mantha, Malkin, Brazeau, looking really good. Sidney Crosby is he's not on his game just yet, but he had a goal and an assist on Thursday. Kindle and, oh, by the way, the fourth line. They are just scrap iron. And that's all I got to say about that. Penguins win 4-3. Really entertaining game. Like, subscribe, share, rip me, tell me all the ways I'm wrong, and we'll do it all again on Saturday. In the meantime, from PPG Paints Arena, I'm Dan Kingerski. Have fun.